For most of the country, it is late fall winter fishing, and probably the number one question that I hear from anglers is, where do these fish go? Well, that's what we're going to talk about today. Hi there, welcome to the Bass Fishing Life. I'm your host, Steve Rogers. Make sure that you punch that YouTube subscribe button, hit the notification bell, and like the video. I surely appreciate it. Well, the water temp out here is 39 degrees. It is freezing cold on the surface, okay? It dropped probably 15 to 20 degrees just in the last 2 weeks. So the question is, where do these fish go? You know, they're still in the lake, they're still there, but it seems like life is just gone. It's non-existent, the entire lake is devoid. So where did these fish go? Well, we're gonna talk about 2 or 3 things today that you can check next time you're on the water for these winter fish. So let's go ahead and get started. The first place to check, and this works no matter what type of lake, body of water you're fishing in the entire country, from ponds to great big reservoirs, natural lakes in the north, doesn't matter, this works. The first thing that I want you to check is the very center of channels and coves. If you're in a pond, it's going to be the very center of the pond. Now, these areas look like kind of big bowls, just depressions, often the lowest point in a channel or a cove or in a pond. They look like nothing. They're just these big hollowed out areas. Now, depending on your water, those depths are going to vary greatly. If you're fishing a pond, that might be 12 foot of water. If you're fishing a reservoir, you may be down 40, 50 feet of water, but you've got to be out there and check. It's going to look like you're just wide open in the middle of nowhere along the bank, and you're just really out there in like this void, this devoid area. And those are the places I want you to check first. As a matter of fact, as I was getting ready to set up and film for here today, I was coming through, this is a strip mine lake, so as you can tell on the lake that I'm on, it's not super wide, so out in the middle here, these big empty areas in the middle are not quite as dramatic as, let's say, if you're on a big highland reservoir. It still looks like I'm fishing near the shore, but I'm out in the middle. As I was coming across right down the center, okay, I had my graph on, you always have those electronics on, and I was just idling down the lake, and the depth was about 40 to 45 feet, and all of a sudden there's this hump right in the middle that comes up and tops off at about 32 feet, and there were fish all over it. Your traditional arc. They were on the sides of it, they were on the top of it, they were on the other side of it, and it was smack dab in the middle of the lake. And most of those arcs were from 32, 33 feet all the way down to about 40 feet. So they're getting out there deep, and there was a pile of fish on this thing. Absolutely crazy. And the cool thing about this particular way of fishing, when you fish these bottomed out areas in the center of these channels, in the center of these ponds, is that is something that you can replicate in other areas on the lake that you're fishing. If you're fishing a river, okay, I love to do float trips down rivers, and maybe the average depth is 2 to 3 feet, and all of a sudden I get like a 10-foot hole, a 10-foot bowl. There's going to be smallmouth stacked up in that thing. So that is the first thing to check. You have to get out of your mind shoreline type stuff. If you're going to fish like this, get out in the middle, let those baits sink all the way down there to the bottom, and you don't necessarily want to pound the bottom, but you want to keep that bait close to the bottom, okay? So that's definitely the first thing to check. The second thing to check for winter fishing, and this doesn't apply to all lakes, like this is not something that can happen on my lake whatsoever, and that is find deep rock piles. If you have a body of water that has offshore rock, there's going to be fish on it. And like I mentioned earlier, with the hollowed out fishing, those depths can vary depending on the body of water that you're on, but if you can find deep rock, that is going to be the number one place that I would check on that lake. I didn't say number one here because I don't have that here. part of me thinks I should, off my own dock, just get a dump truck full of boulders and just start throwing them out in the lake, because I know exactly what would happen. It would be a fish magnet. So deep rock is the second place to look for on your lake. So what about the third one? The third one is any type of hard cover. Okay, a lot of places, ponds and things like that that are a little bit shallower, they still have hard cover. And of course we think of rock, and we just mentioned that, but hard cover can be a tree, okay, a lay down tree in the water. A hard cover can be dock pilings, the metal shoreline pilings that you often find in commercial type areas, or where people try to keep their shorelines for washing away. Those fish, man, they will get up tight to that type of stuff. So any type of hard cover. As far as docks this time of year, I find that I usually skip over the floating docks, and I go to the docks that have some sort of posts and pilings driven all the way down. Those are going to be better than a floating dock, because those fish like to get right up next to it and hug it. Now, as you read your graphs, as you read your electronics, you may notice that it's hard to see them on there. Now, I mentioned this hump that I had out here, and there was fish all over it. I could see them real clearly, but that's not always the case. In those shallow bowl out, or those bowled out type of areas, those big devoid areas in the middle of the channels, their bellies are going to be right there on the bottom. I mean, all the way down. So it may be very difficult to pick them up, but you have to have the confidence that they are there. In the rocks, they could be down nestled into those rocks and hard to pick up. They may not be like they are other times of the year where they're suspended up off the bottom, a foot or two. They're going to be nestled right down there in it. And if you're fishing that hard cover, those piers, those dock pilings, they're going to be bumped up right next to it. So you may not always mark them on your graph, but those are 3 areas that you can always probe and count on in the winter. And winter bites can be really good. We just have to brave the elements. You got to remember, the water that they're in down at those other depths is going to be warmer than what that surface temperature is. Well, I hope that these 3 tips for winter fishing help you out. And if you're a pond fisherman, this is golden. Throw that thing out there in the middle of that pond, let it get all the way down there to the bottom in that deepest point, and those fish will be there, definitely. Just make sure that you're fishing it slow and keeping it down there in front of them. Make sure to get out and encourage somebody today. You never know what a difference you're going to make in their life for the bass fishing life. I'm your host, Steve Rogers.